The salt spray stung Lieutenant Sarah Ghost Martinez's face as she crouched behind the concrete barrier, her breathing controlled despite the chaos erupting around her. This wasn't supposed to happen during Hell Week. The live fire exercise had gone catastrophically wrong when intel reports revealed actual enemy combatants had infiltrated the training area. What started as a simulation was now a real combat situation, and the instructors were treating it as such. Martinez, Chief Petty Officer Reynolds, barked through the radio static. "We've got 3 tangos on the ridge, approximately 800 meters. Our sniper's been compromised. Can you make that shot?" Sarah's grip tightened on the Barrett M82A1 she'd been carrying for the marksmanship portion of the exercise. At 29 pounds, the .5 caliber rifle was a beast that most candidates struggled to handle effectively, especially after 5 days of grueling physical and mental torture that comprised Hell Week. Her shoulders ached, her hands trembled from exhaustion, and every muscle fiber in her body screamed for rest. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 800 meters in these conditions, Sarah muttered, calculating wind speed, target movement, and the weapon's ballistics in her head. The Pacific coastal wind was gusting unpredictably, and the morning fog created visibility challenges that would test even a fresh sniper's abilities. But Sarah Martinez wasn't just any candidate. Born in El Paso, Texas, to a family with 3 generations of military service, she had been preparing for this moment her entire life. Her grandfather had served in Vietnam, her father in Desert Storm, and her older brother had been a Marine scout sniper before an IED took his life in Afghanistan. That loss had driven her to push beyond every barrier, every limitation that others had placed on her. The SEAL instructors had made it clear from day one that they didn't want her there. Not because she lacked skill. Her military record spoke for itself. She had distinguished herself as a Navy EOD specialist, defusing over 300 explosive devices during 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. She had earned a Bronze Star for valor and a Purple Heart when shrapnel nearly cost her an eye during a particularly dangerous operation in Helmand Province. No. They didn't want her because she was a woman attempting to break into the most elite fighting force in the world, and they believed she would inevitably fail, potentially compromising missions and endangering her teammates. The statistics seemed to support their skepticism. No woman had ever successfully completed BUDS training to become a Navy SEAL. "Martinez, we need that shot now!" Reynolds' voice crackled through her earpiece with increasing urgency. Sarah positioned herself behind the Barrett, feeling its familiar weight against her shoulder. The rifle had become an extension of herself during countless hours of training. While other candidates struggled with the weapon's massive recoil and complex ballistics, she had embraced it, studying every aspect of its mechanics until she could field strip and reassemble it blindfolded. Through the scope, she could see the 3 enemy fighters taking positions on the ridge. They were setting up what appeared to be a mortar system that would rain devastating fire down on the SEAL training compound below. Dozens of her fellow candidates and instructors were in immediate danger, and she was the only one in position to neutralize the threat. The first target was approximately 785 meters away, crouched behind a boulder while adjusting the mortar's elevation. The second was moving between covered positions about 820 meters out, carrying ammunition. The third, the apparent leader, was standing exposed at 847 meters, directing the operation through hand signals. Sarah's training kicked in as she calculated the complex ballistics equation in her head. The .5 caliber BMG round would travel at approximately 2,800 feet per second, but wind drift, temperature, humidity, and the Coriolis effect would all influence its trajectory over that distance. She had perhaps 30 seconds before the mortar would be operational. Her breathing slowed to the rhythm she had practiced thousands of times. Inhale, exhale, hold. The crosshairs settled on the furthest target, the leader. Taking out the commander first would disrupt their coordination and potentially cause the others to retreat or make tactical errors. The world seemed to slow as her finger found the trigger's breakpoint. Years of preparation, months of grueling training, and a lifetime of proving herself had led to this single moment. The instructors who had doubted her capabilities were watching through binoculars and spotting scopes, waiting to see if the woman who had somehow survived Hell Week this far could deliver when lives depended on it. The Barrett's thunderous report echoed across the training area as Sarah absorbed the massive recoil, her body positioned perfectly to maintain target acquisition. Through the scope, she watched the .50 caliber round streak through the morning air, crossing nearly a quarter mile in less than 2 seconds. The bullet struck the enemy leader's center mass, the devastating impact of the 647-grain projectile immediately neutralizing the threat. The other 2 fighters dove for cover, their coordinated attack suddenly thrown into chaos without their commander's direction. "Target down," Sarah reported calmly, already tracking the second fighter who was attempting to reach the abandoned mortar system. "Holy hell, Martinez," came Chief Reynolds' voice through the radio, carrying a note of genuine surprise. "That was an 847-meter shot in these conditions. Reload and continue engaging." But Sarah was already working the Barrett's bolt action, chambering another round. The second target had made a critical error, believing the covering fire from his fallen leader's position would protect him as he sprinted toward the mortar. He had underestimated both the range and accuracy of the weapon now trained on him. At 820 meters, accounting for his lateral movement and the slight downward angle from her position, Sarah led her target by approximately 6 feet. The mathematical precision required for such a shot was staggering. A difference of mere inches in her aim point could mean the difference between a clean hit and a complete miss. The second round thundered from the Barrett, and once again, Sarah's calculations proved flawless. The running fighter was lifted off his feet by the impact, the massive kinetic energy of the .50 caliber round ending his threat permanently. "2 down," she reported, tracking toward the third target, who had now realized the devastating accuracy of the sniper engaging his team. The remaining enemy fighter was smarter than his companions. Rather than attempting to complete the mortar setup or fleeing in panic, he was using available cover to work his way closer to the SEAL position, likely planning to engage with his assault rifle once he closed the distance. It was a sound tactical decision that showed military training and combat experience. Sarah watched him move through her scope, noting his disciplined fire and movement techniques. This wasn't some random insurgent or terrorist. This was a professional soldier who understood that his best chance of survival was to neutralize the sniper before she could engage him effectively at close range. "Martinez, Target 3 is moving to flank our position from the north," came another voice over the radio. Lieutenant Commander Harrison, one of her instructors who had been particularly vocal about his doubts regarding female candidates in the SEAL program. "I have him," Sarah replied, tracking the fighter's movement through a series of covered positions. He was good, very good. His movement pattern was unpredictable, using terrain features and available concealment to mask his advance. At 785 meters in closing, he presented brief target opportunities of only a few seconds before disappearing behind the next piece of cover. This shot would be different from the previous 2. Rather than engaging a static or predictably moving target, she would need to time her shot perfectly with his movement pattern, predicting not just where he would be, but when he would be there. She studied his rhythm, counting the seconds between his movements. He would emerge from behind the large rock formation in approximately 8 seconds, sprint 15 meters to the next covered position, then pause for 3 to 5 seconds before moving again. She would have perhaps 2 seconds to acquire, aim, and fire. The Barrett scope tracked smoothly as she anticipated his next movement. Her breathing remained controlled despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. This was the shot that would either confirm her capabilities or potentially allow an enemy fighter to reach a position where he could endanger her fellow trainees. Through her peripheral vision, she could see several instructors watching her performance through their own optics. She knew that every aspect of her technique was being evaluated, not just the accuracy of her shots, but her composure under pressure, her tactical decision-making, and her ability to perform when lives were on the line. The fighter emerged from cover exactly when Sarah predicted, sprinting toward his next position. The crosshairs tracked smoothly with his movement, leading him by the precise amount her calculations indicated. At the exact moment she estimated he would reach the optimal intercept point, her finger pressed through the trigger's brake.
The third shot rang out across the training area with the same devastating authority as the previous two. The enemy fighter's sprint ended abruptly as the .50 caliber round found its mark, completing Sarah's perfect engagement sequence. "All targets neutralized," she reported, beginning to scan for additional threats while keeping the Barrett ready for immediate engagement. The radio crackled with multiple voices as instructors confirmed the elimination of the threat and began coordinating the security sweep of the area. But Chief Reynolds' voice cut through the chatter with unmistakable authority. "Martinez, what's your range estimation on those 3 shots?" Sarah didn't need to check her calculations again. The numbers were burned into her memory. 847, 820, and 875 meters, Chief. All targets engaged and neutralized in under 90 seconds. A long silence followed before Reynolds' voice returned, carrying a tone she had never heard from him before. "Martinez, report to the command post immediately. Leave your weapon with Petty Officer Johnson for inspection and documentation."
As Sarah handed over the Barrett M82A1 to Petty Officer Johnson, she noticed the unusual attention her rifle was receiving. Johnson, a veteran sniper instructor with multiple combat deployments, was examining the weapon with the kind of meticulous care typically reserved for evidence collection rather than routine post-exercise inspection. "Ma'am, I need to verify your ammunition count and document the condition of this weapon," Johnson said, his voice carrying an odd formality. "These shots are going to be thoroughly analyzed." Sarah watched as he carefully counted her remaining rounds, photographed the rifle from multiple angles, and made detailed notes about its condition. Other instructors were gathering around, their conversations hushed but intense. Something about this situation was different from the standard post-exercise procedures she had experienced throughout Bud's training. The walk to the command post felt longer than usual. Her body was beginning to register the accumulated fatigue of Hell Week, 5 days of continuous physical and mental challenges designed to push candidates beyond their breaking points. She had managed perhaps 6 hours of sleep total, consumed minimal food, and endured constant physical exertion in harsh conditions. Yet, somehow, when the moment demanded absolute precision, she had delivered 3 consecutive long-range shots that would challenge even fresh, rested snipers. Lieutenant Commander Harrison was waiting at the command post, along with several other senior instructors she recognized, and a few she didn't. The presence of unfamiliar personnel suggested this debriefing would extend beyond the normal training evaluation process. "Martinez?" Harrison began, his voice lacking its usual edge of skepticism. "I need you to walk us through your engagement sequence. Every detail, from the moment you received the target information until you reported all targets neutralized." Sarah straightened despite her exhaustion and began her account. She detailed her range calculations, wind compensation, target movement predictions, and the timing of each shot. As she spoke, she noticed one of the unfamiliar personnel, a commander she didn't recognize, taking detailed notes while occasionally asking specific technical questions about her ballistics calculations. "Ma'am, can you explain how you calculated the wind compensation for that 847-meter shot? The meteorological data shows gusting winds with variable direction." Sarah launched into her explanation of wind reading techniques, describing how she had used visual indicators like vegetation movement and dust patterns to estimate wind speed and direction at different points along the bullet's trajectory. She explained her methodology for calculating wind drift at extended ranges and how she had adjusted for the coastal wind patterns specific to their training location. The commander's eyebrows raised slightly. "And you performed these calculations under combat stress after 5 days of Hell Week in approximately 15 seconds? "Yes, sir," Sarah replied simply. "The math becomes automatic with sufficient practice." Chief Reynolds entered the command post carrying a tablet displaying what appeared to be ballistics data. "Martinez, the range safety officer, has confirmed all 3 of your shots. The laser rangefinder readings show 847.3 meters, 820.7 meters, and 785.4 meters, respectively. All 3 targets were neutralized with single shots, and the shot group analysis indicates precision consistent with optimal conditions rather than field expedient shooting." The unknown commander looked up from his notes with obvious interest.
Chief, what's the current record for consecutive long-range engagements during Hell Week conditions? Reynolds consulted his tablet before responding. Sir, the previous record was 2 consecutive hits at ranges exceeding 600 meters, set in 2018 by a candidate who went on to become a team sniper. That record stood at 623 and 641 meters under similar conditions. Sarah felt a strange sensation in her stomach as the implications of this conversation began to register. The formal documentation, the detailed questioning, and the presence of senior personnel suggested that her performance had exceeded normal training parameters by a significant margin. Lieutenant Commander Harrison cleared his throat before addressing her directly. Martinez, based on preliminary analysis, it appears you've set a new Hell Week marksmanship record. 3 consecutive precision shots at ranges exceeding 780 meters with perfect accuracy under extreme physical and mental stress conditions. The commander she didn't recognize stepped forward and introduced himself. I'm Commander Mitchell from Naval Special Warfare Development Group. Martinez, your performance today is going to generate significant interest from multiple departments. Long-range precision shooting at this level, particularly under these conditions, represents a capability that's extremely valuable to our operations. Sarah remained silent, unsure how to respond to what seemed like praise from personnel who had presumably come to observe her expected failure during the most challenging phase of SEAL training. Harrison continued, Martinez, based on the engagement sequence you just completed, successfully neutralized 3 targets that represented an immediate threat to approximately 40 personnel in this compound. Your shots were not only accurate, but tactically sound, demonstrating both technical proficiency and combat judgment. Furthermore, Commander Mitchell added, the conditions under which you achieved this performance, following 5 days of Hell Week, suggest capabilities that extend beyond what we typically see even from our most experienced snipers. The physical and mental stress you've endured would significantly degrade most shooters' performance, yet you delivered precision that meets or exceeds peacetime range standards. Chief Reynolds looked at his tablet again before making an announcement that would change Sarah's trajectory through the SEAL program forever. Martinez, effective immediately, you're being recommended for advanced marksmanship evaluation and specialized training consideration. Your Hell Week performance will continue as scheduled, but additional assessments will be conducted to determine your potential for assignment to precision shooter roles. Sarah finally found her voice. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. Harrison's expression softened slightly, the first time she had seen anything other than stern evaluation from him. Martinez, you've already exceeded every expectation. The question now is what we do with capabilities like yours.
The news of Sarah's record-breaking performance spread through the Naval Special Warfare community like wildfire, but not everyone was celebrating. As she returned to her barracks that evening, exhausted from completing the remainder of Hell Week, she could feel the mixed reactions from her fellow candidates and instructors. Some looked at her with newfound respect, recognizing that her achievement had elevated the entire class. Others harbored resentment, believing she was receiving special treatment simply because of her gender and the publicity her success would generate. The dynamics within her training class had shifted dramatically in a single afternoon. So now you're the poster girl for women in combat, muttered candidate Thompson, a former Army Ranger who had been vocal about his opposition to integrated training from day one. Must be nice to have the brass taking special interest in your career. Sarah chose not to respond, understanding that engaging in arguments would only fuel the controversy surrounding her presence in the program. She had learned early in her military career that exceptional performance often generated both admiration and jealousy, and that the best response was continued excellence rather than verbal confrontation. But the pressure was mounting from directions she hadn't anticipated. Commander Mitchell had returned the following morning with a team of analysts and additional senior officers, including a representative from Joint Special Operations Command, who seemed particularly interested in her background and training methodology. Martinez, Commander Mitchell explained during a private meeting. Your performance yesterday has caught attention at levels far above normal Bud's oversight. There are discussions about accelerating your timeline, potentially moving you into specialized roles before you complete the standard SEAL training pipeline. The offer was tempting and terrifying simultaneously. Sarah had worked her entire military career toward earning the Trident, the SEAL insignia that represented completion of the most demanding military training in the world. The possibility of bypassing portions of that training, even for specialized assignments, felt like accepting an incomplete victory. Sir, with respect, I want to earn my place the same way every other SEAL has earned theirs. If my marksmanship abilities are valuable, they'll be even more valuable when combined with the complete skill set this training provides. Mitchell nodded approvingly. That's exactly the response we hope to hear. But understand that your performance has created opportunities and expectations that extend beyond normal SEAL operations. The capabilities you demonstrated suggest potential applications in mission profiles that we've previously considered impossible or unacceptably risky. Over the following weeks, Sarah's training continued under intensified scrutiny. Every exercise was monitored and analyzed by personnel whose presence indicated interest from the highest levels of the military command structure. Her marksmanship training was supplemented with advanced ballistics courses, exotic weapon systems, and specialized ammunition types that were typically reserved for senior snipers with years of operational experience. The additional training was revealing capabilities that even Sarah hadn't fully realized she possessed. During a routine 1,000-meter precision shooting exercise, she consistently achieved sub-MOA accuracy with the Barrett M82A1, a level of precision that challenged the physical limitations of the rifle itself. When instructors increased the range to 1,200 meters, her accuracy remained virtually unchanged. Martinez, Chief Reynolds, confided after a particularly impressive shooting session, "I've been training snipers for 15 years, and I've never seen natural ability like this. The mathematical calculations you're performing in your head typically require ballistics computers and multiple range cards. You're doing it instinctively." The pressure intensified when Sarah learned that her training was being documented for potential inclusion in updated marksmanship doctrine. Every technique she used, every innovation she developed, and every problem-solving approach she demonstrated was being recorded and analyzed for broader application across special operations units. But the real test of her capabilities came during a classified exercise that would remain largely undisclosed for years after its completion. Sarah was awakened at 0300 hours and transported to an undisclosed location where she found herself facing a scenario that blurred the lines between training and actual operations. "This is a live-fire exercise with classified parameters," announced a colonel she had never seen before. "The targets you'll be engaging represent time-sensitive threats that must be neutralized within specific time windows. Failure to achieve first-round hits will result in mission failure and potential loss of friendly personnel." The scenario involved multiple targets at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters, each requiring engagement within narrow time windows that simulated real-world operational constraints. The targets were designed to test not just marksmanship accuracy, but tactical decision-making under extreme pressure. Sarah was provided with a Barrett M107A1, an upgraded version of the rifle she had used during Hell Week, along with specialized ammunition and advanced optics she had never used before. She had 30 minutes to familiarize herself with the equipment before the exercise began. The first target appeared at 1,147 meters, visible for only 45 seconds, before it would disappear behind cover. Her calculations had to account for temperature, humidity, wind conditions, and the ballistic characteristics of the unfamiliar ammunition. She had one shot to succeed. The Barrett's report echoed across the range as Sarah's first round found its target with devastating precision. Before she could fully process the success, the second target was already appearing at 1,203 meters, requiring immediate engagement.
Her second shot was equally accurate, followed by successful engagement of targets at 978 meters, 1,089 meters, and finally 1,234 meters, the longest confirmed precision shot of her career to that point. All targets neutralized, Sarah reported, her voice steady despite the adrenaline surge from the challenging exercise. The colonel approached her position with an expression that mixed professional assessment with obvious admiration. Martinez, you just completed a scenario that we designed to challenge our most experienced snipers. 5 consecutive precision shots at extended ranges, under time pressure, with unfamiliar equipment. Your performance was flawless.
The classified exercise results opened doors that Sarah had never imagined existed within the military structure. Within 48 hours of completing the long-range precision shooting test, she found herself sitting across from a selection panel that included representatives from multiple special operations units, intelligence agencies, and departments she couldn't identify. Lieutenant Martinez began a civilian who introduced himself only as Mr. Johnson. Your capabilities have been brought to our attention by several different channels. We're here to discuss opportunities that extend beyond traditional SEAL operations. The room contained more stars and eagles than Sarah had ever seen in a single meeting. A Navy admiral, 2 Army generals, an Air Force colonel, and several individuals in civilian clothes whose authority was implicit rather than displayed through rank insignia. Your performance metrics indicate capabilities that could be applied to mission profiles we've previously considered impossible, explained the admiral. Long-range precision shooting at the level you've demonstrated opens tactical options that could significantly impact high-value operations. Sarah listened as they outlined scenarios that sounded more like science fiction than military operations. Precision shots at ranges approaching 1,500 meters under adverse conditions, target engagement from platforms she hadn't known existed, and mission profiles that would require her to operate independently in denied territory for extended periods. The question, Mr. Johnson continued, is whether you're interested in applications that would take you beyond traditional SEAL team operations. The training would be extensive, the missions would be classified at levels that would limit your ability to discuss your work even with family members, and the operational environment would involve risks that exceed normal special operations parameters. The offer was both thrilling and sobering. Sarah had joined the Navy to serve her country and honor her brother's memory, but the path being presented would take her into territory that few military personnel ever experienced. Sir, can you provide more specific information about the type of operations you're discussing? Sarah asked. The admiral consulted his notes before responding. High-value target elimination at extended ranges, precision shooting in support of classified intelligence operations, and potential assignment to joint task forces that operate under National Command Authority direction. The work would be among the most sensitive conducted by U.S. military forces. Sarah realized they were describing a role that would make her one of the most specialized operators in the entire military. The responsibility was staggering, but so was the opportunity to serve at the highest levels of national defense. However, Mr. Johnson interjected, acceptance of this path would require completion of training programs that make BUDS look like basic fitness preparation. The failure rate exceeds 90%, and the physical and mental demands are designed to identify the absolute elite among special operations personnel. The next several hours involved detailed briefings on training programs she had never heard of, conducted at facilities whose existence was classified, under the supervision of instructors whose identities were protected by security protocols that exceeded anything in her previous experience. She learned about advanced ballistics programs that incorporated atmospheric physics, target analysis techniques that required understanding of material science and structural engineering, and mission planning methodologies that integrated intelligence analysis with precision shooting doctrine. The training pipeline would take approximately 18 months, explained the Air Force colonel. You would work with equipment that represents the cutting edge of precision shooting technology, learn techniques that are unavailable outside of these programs, and develop capabilities that fewer than 50 people worldwide possess.
Sarah's mind raced as she processed the implications of what they were offering. This was an opportunity to serve at levels she had never imagined possible, but it would also mean leaving behind the traditional SEAL career path she had fought so hard to enter. "Sir, if I accept this opportunity, what happens to my goal of earning the SEAL Trident?" she asked. Mr. Johnson smiled slightly. "Martinez, if you successfully complete the programs we're discussing, you'll have earned something that makes the Trident look like a participation trophy. You'll be qualified for missions that SEAL teams couldn't even attempt." Sarah took a deep breath, understanding that her decision would determine not just her own career trajectory, but potentially influence the development of military capabilities that could affect global security. "I accept," she said simply. The Admiral nodded approvingly. "Outstanding. Your first training assignment begins in 2 weeks at a facility I can't name, under instructors I can't identify, for programs that officially don't exist. Welcome to the most elite level of military service, Lieutenant Martinez."
2 weeks later, Sarah found herself standing in front of a nondescript building in Virginia, holding orders that contained more redacted information than actual instructions. The facility looked like any other government office complex, but the security procedures required for entry suggested capabilities far beyond administrative functions. "Lieutenant Martinez," greeted a woman in civilian clothes who appeared to be in her 40s. "I'm your primary instructor. You can call me Sarah Alpha. For security reasons, you won't learn my actual name or background unless it becomes operationally necessary." The instructor led her through corridors that revealed progressively more sophisticated security measures, biometric scanners, access control points that required multiple forms of authentication, and surveillance systems that tracked their movement through the facility with obvious precision. This program has no official name, no public documentation, and no graduates who discuss their training with unauthorized personnel, Sarah Alpha explained as they walked. "What you'll learn here represents capabilities that fewer than 30 people worldwide possess." They entered a briefing room where Sarah was presented with training materials that immediately demonstrated the program's extraordinary scope. Advanced physics textbooks, ballistics calculation software she had never seen, equipment manuals for weapon systems that didn't appear in any standard military inventory. "Your Hell Week performance and subsequent evaluations indicate natural abilities that we can develop into capabilities that currently exist only in theoretical form," Sarah Alpha continued as they walked. "But the training will push you beyond anything you've experienced, and failure will result in immediate reassignment to conventional units with classified material exposure protocols that will significantly limit your career options." The first phase of training focused on advanced ballistics theory that went far beyond traditional sniper education. Sarah learned about atmospheric modeling techniques used by meteorologists, physics principles that governed projectile behavior at extreme ranges, and mathematical concepts that required understanding of calculus and differential equations. "At the ranges you'll be shooting, traditional ballistics calculations become inadequate," explained Dr. Martinez, a civilian instructor with advanced degrees in physics and engineering. "You'll need to understand how temperature gradients affect projectile trajectory, how humidity changes influence air density, and how even minor variations in ammunition manufacturing can impact accuracy at distances exceeding 1,500 meters. The academic portion of the training was mentally exhausting, requiring her to master concepts that most military snipers never encountered. But Sarah's mathematical aptitude, developed through years of calculating complex ballistics equations under pressure, enabled her to absorb the advanced material more quickly than her instructors had anticipated. The practical training was even more demanding. Sarah was introduced to rifle systems that represented the cutting edge of precision shooting technology. Custom-built platforms that incorporated technological advances unavailable in standard military weapons, ammunition designed to maintain accuracy at ranges that challenge the limits of small arms effectiveness. "This is the Barrett M82A1, announced her weapons instructor, known only as Mike Charlie. "It's been modified with components that are classified at levels I can't discuss, but the practical result is accuracy potential that exceeds anything you've used before. The effective range extends to approximately 1,800 meters under optimal conditions."
Sarah's first session with the modified Barrett revealed capabilities that seemed to defy physics. The weapon's accuracy at extended ranges was extraordinary, but the skill required to exploit its potential was equally demanding. Every shot required calculations that incorporated dozens of variables, many of which changed continuously as environmental conditions fluctuated. "Your target is at 1,456 meters, Mike Charlie announced during her first extended range session. Wind is gusting from the southwest at 8 to 12 miles per hour. Temperature is 73 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity is 68%, and the barometric pressure is 30.15 inches. You have one shot to achieve a first-round hit." Sarah's mental calculations incorporated all the environmental data while factoring in the ballistic characteristics of the specialized ammunition. The modified Barrett felt familiar despite its advanced components, and her shot placement resulted in a perfect center mass hit that impressed even her veteran instructors. "Outstanding," Mike Charlie commented. "Now, let's see how you perform when the conditions become challenging." Over the following weeks, Sarah's training scenarios became progressively more demanding. Shots at ranges exceeding 1,600 meters, target engagement in adverse weather conditions, and precision shooting from unstable platforms that simulated real-world operational constraints. The mental pressure was as challenging as the physical demands. Every shot was evaluated not just for accuracy, but for the decision-making process that preceded it, the adaptations she made for changing conditions, and her ability to maintain performance under increasing stress. "Martinez," Sarah Alpha explained after a particularly challenging session, "the operations you're training for will involve scenarios where second shots aren't possible. The targets will be high-value individuals who will disappear permanently if the first shot fails. The political and strategic consequences of mission failure extend beyond military considerations." Sarah was beginning to understand that her role would involve more than exceptional marksmanship. She would be responsible for missions that could influence international relations, affect national security at the highest levels, and potentially alter the course of global conflicts. The realization was both humbling and terrifying. The young woman who had struggled to gain acceptance in SEAL training was being prepared for responsibilities that few people in the world would ever experience. "Your next phase of training will involve scenario-based exercises that simulate actual operational conditions. You'll be engaging targets whose elimination could prevent terrorist attacks, disrupt enemy operations, or protect American lives in ways that won't be publicly acknowledged." Sarah nodded, understanding that she was crossing a threshold that would define the rest of her military career. The precision shooting skills that had started as personal challenges were becoming capabilities that could influence the security of her nation.
6 months into the classified training program, Sarah faced her most challenging test yet. She stood on a mountain ridge in an undisclosed location, facing a target array that would push her capabilities to their absolute limits. The weather conditions were deliberately adverse, gusting winds up to 25 miles per hour, temperature variations that created thermal layers affecting bullet trajectory, and atmospheric pressure changes that would challenge even computer-assisted ballistics calculations. Your mission today involves multiple targets at ranges from 1,200 to 1,847 meters, announced Sarah Alpha through her earpiece. Intelligence indicates these targets represent imminent threats to American personnel overseas. You have a 30-minute window before they relocate to positions where engagement becomes impossible. The scenario was designed to simulate real-world conditions where perfect ballistic solutions weren't possible, where environmental factors changed continuously, and where operational success depended on adapting to uncertainty while maintaining precision under extreme time pressure. Sarah's first target was positioned at 1,203 meters behind partial cover, visible only when he moved between concealed positions. The intelligence briefing indicated he was a bomb maker, responsible for devices that had killed dozens of coalition forces. Her window of opportunity would last no more than 15 seconds when he emerged to signal his associates. Through her advanced optics, she could see heat shimmer rising from the desert floor, indicating temperature gradients that would affect her bullet's trajectory. The wind patterns were complex, with different velocities at various elevations between her position and the target. Her calculations had to account for all these variables while predicting the target's movement pattern. The target appeared exactly when the intelligence assessment predicted, but the environmental conditions had shifted since her initial calculations. Sarah made instantaneous adjustments based on visual wind indicators and her growing intuitive understanding of long-range ballistics in challenging conditions. Her shot thundered across the mountainous terrain, and through her scope, she confirmed the elimination of the first target. But there was no time to savor the success. Her second target was already moving into position at 1,389 meters, and the clock was running. Target 1 neutralized, she reported calmly. Engaging Target 2. The second engagement required a completely different approach. The target was a sniper himself, positioned to eliminate American reconnaissance personnel. He understood counter-sniper tactics and was using them effectively, presenting minimal exposure while maintaining his ability to engage his intended victims. Sarah's advanced training in target analysis revealed weaknesses in his position that a conventional sniper might miss. His cover provided protection from direct frontal engagement, but the angle of his shooting position created a brief vulnerability when he adjusted his aim. She would have approximately 3 seconds to identify this opening and execute a precision shot through a gap no larger than 8 inches. The mathematical complexity of the shot was staggering. She had to calculate not just the ballistics to the target, but the precise trajectory required to thread her bullet through the narrow opening in his cover. The margin for error was essentially 0. A miscalculation of even half an inch would result in the bullet striking cover instead of the target. Her breathing slowed as she waited for the tactical moment she had identified. When it came, her response was automatic. Months of training had programmed her muscle memory to execute complex shots without conscious thought. The Barrett spoke, and Target 2 was eliminated before he could complete his own engagement sequence. 2 down, Sarah reported, already transitioning to the most challenging shot of the exercise. Target 3 was positioned at 1,847 meters, approaching the maximum effective range of her weapon system even under optimal conditions. But these weren't optimal conditions. The extreme range meant that even minor environmental factors would be magnified, and the target's position on the far ridge meant her bullet would cross multiple wind layers and thermal gradients during its flight. Martinez, Sarah Alpha's voice crackled through her earpiece. Target 3 represents a high-value individual whose elimination could prevent a major terrorist attack. This shot is at the absolute limit of current technology and human capability. Sarah understood the implications. This wasn't just a training exercise. It was a demonstration of capabilities that might be required in actual operations. The shot she was attempting would establish new parameters for what was possible in precision shooting, potentially influencing military doctrine and tactical planning. Through her advanced optics, she could barely identify the target at such extreme range. The atmospheric distortion, heat shimmer, and natural camouflage made target identification challenging even with the most sophisticated optical equipment available. Her calculations incorporated every variable she had learned during months of intensive training. Air temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, wind speed and direction at multiple elevations, the Coriolis effect, gyroscopic drift, and even the rotational velocity of the Earth itself. The mathematical precision required was beyond what most people could comprehend, let alone execute under pressure. The trigger press came at the optimal moment when all environmental factors aligned as closely as possible with her calculations. The Barrett's massive recoil threatened to disrupt her scope picture, but her shooting position and technique maintained target acquisition throughout the engagement. The flight time for her bullet was nearly 3 seconds, an eternity in precision shooting, where most engagements occurred at ranges where flight time was measured in fractions of a second. Sarah maintained her scope picture, watching for the impact that would confirm or deny her success. At 1,847 meters, through atmospheric distortion and challenging environmental conditions, her shot found its mark with devastating precision. "All targets neutralized," she reported, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she had just accomplished. The silence that followed lasted longer than usual, before Sarah Alpha's voice returned with obvious amazement. "Martinez, you've just completed successful engagements at 12:03,
1,389, and 1,847 meters under adverse conditions. The final shot represents the longest confirmed precision hit in the history of this program.
The success of Sarah's extreme range shooting demonstration had consequences that extended far beyond her training program. Within 48 hours, she found herself in a secure conference room facing a panel that included the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and representatives from intelligence agencies whose existence was classified. Lieutenant Martinez, the Secretary of Defense began, your capabilities have been brought to our attention through channels that indicate readiness for operational deployment. We have a situation that requires precisely the skill set you've developed. The briefing that followed revealed intelligence about a terrorist leader whose elimination had become the highest priority for national security. The target had evaded conventional military operations for 3 years, had survived multiple assassination attempts, and was planning an attack that could kill thousands of American civilians. The target moves between locations using security protocols that make conventional special operations approaches impossible, explained the CIA representative. He never remains in any position long enough for traditional assault teams to deploy, and his security arrangements include counter-sniper measures that have defeated previous elimination attempts. Sarah listened as they described a scenario that seemed designed specifically for her unique capabilities. The target would be vulnerable for approximately 90 seconds during a scheduled meeting, but only to engagement from a specific location that was 1,734 meters away from his position. The shot would have to be made from a concealed position on a mountain ridge across a valley where wind patterns are unpredictable and environmental conditions change rapidly, the defense secretary continued. Intelligence indicates you would have one opportunity, and failure would result in the target disappearing permanently while completing preparations for an attack that could dwarf 9/11. The operational parameters were more challenging than anything she had faced in training. She would be deployed alone, with minimal support, into territory where capture would mean torture and death, while potentially compromising national security secrets at the highest levels. "Ma'am," Sarah responded carefully, "I understand the importance of this mission, but I need to know about extraction plans, backup options if the primary shot fails, and intelligence reliability regarding the target's location and timing." The CIA representative consulted classified documents before responding. Intelligence confidence is 97% regarding target location and timing. Extraction will be handled by assets we can't discuss, but your exfiltration route is planned and rehearsed. As for backup options, there are none. This represents the only opportunity we'll have. The weight of responsibility was staggering. Sarah realized she was being asked to prevent a terrorist attack that could kill thousands of people, change the course of international relations, and potentially trigger military responses that could affect global stability. The mission timeline requires deployment within 72 hours. You'll be provided with equipment that represents the absolute cutting edge of precision shooting technology, including systems that haven't been field tested but offer capabilities beyond anything currently in operational use. "This system has never been used in combat," explained the technical specialist who briefed her on its operation. "The ballistic software incorporates real-time atmospheric modeling that adjusts continuously for changing conditions. But ultimately, success will depend on your ability to read environmental factors and make the micro-adjustments that no computer can calculate." Sarah's final training session before deployment involved a scenario that replicated the expected mission conditions as closely as possible. The shot distance was 1,734 meters, environmental conditions matched meteorological predictions for the target area, and time constraints simulated the operational window she would face.
Her practice shot achieved perfect accuracy, striking the target's center mass despite challenging wind conditions and atmospheric distortion that made target identification difficult, even with advanced optics. "Outstanding," commented her instructor. "You're ready for operational deployment." But as Sarah prepared for the mission that would define her career and potentially save thousands of lives, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The woman who had been rejected by SEAL instructors because of doubts about female capabilities was now being entrusted with a mission that required skills possessed by fewer than a dozen people worldwide. The irony wasn't lost on her. The same precision shooting abilities that had set records during Hell Week were now being deployed to prevent a terrorist attack that conventional military forces couldn't address. Her deployment began before dawn, with transportation arrangements that maintained operational security while moving her and her equipment to the staging area. The weight of responsibility was matched by confidence in her preparation and capabilities, but she understood that success would require performance that exceeded even her demonstrated abilities.
The insertion into the operational area occurred under cover of darkness, using aircraft and techniques that Sarah couldn't identify and wasn't authorized to know about. What mattered was that she found herself on a mountain ridge, overlooking the valley where her target would appear in approximately 6 hours. The hide site had been prepared by advanced personnel who'd withdrawn before her arrival, leaving behind camouflage, communication equipment, and environmental monitoring devices that would provide real-time data for her ballistics calculations. The position offered an unobstructed view of the target area while providing concealment from counter-surveillance efforts. Sarah's first priority was confirming the ballistic solution she had calculated during mission planning. The actual environmental conditions differed slightly from the meteorological predictions, requiring adjustments to her shooting data. Wind patterns were more complex than anticipated, with different velocities and directions at various elevations between her position and the target area. Using her advanced optics, she could identify the building where her target would appear. Intelligence indicated he would be visible through a specific window for approximately 90 seconds while conducting a meeting that was crucial to his attack planning. The window was 32 inches wide and 28 inches tall, a target area that would challenge even optimal shooting conditions. The range measurement using her laser system confirmed 1,734.7 meters, close enough to her planning estimates that major ballistics adjustments weren't required. But the precision demanded by the target size and range meant that even minor environmental changes could affect her success. "Control, this is Ghost," Sarah transmitted using her assigned call sign. "In position and conducting final preparations. Target window opens in 4 hours, 37 minutes. The response came through encrypted communications that masked the voices of personnel coordinating her mission from locations around the world. "Ghost, control copies. Weather update indicates wind patterns may intensify in your area. Adjust accordingly." Sarah spent the following hours conducting detailed environmental monitoring, tracking how conditions changed as the sun rose and temperatures increased. The thermal layers that would affect her bullet's trajectory were complex, requiring continuous recalculation of her shooting solution. Her specialized ammunition was loaded with precision that exceeded military standards. Each round was individually measured and weighed, with ballistic coefficients calculated for the specific atmospheric conditions she would encounter. The margin for error was essentially zero. Her bullet had to perform exactly as calculated. 2 hours before the target window, Sarah received updated intelligence that created additional pressure. "Ghost, latest intelligence indicates target may be accompanied by hostages during the meeting. Precision is critical. Collateral damage is unacceptable." The information meant her shot had to be even more precise than originally planned. Not only did she have to hit a target at extreme range under challenging conditions, but she had to ensure that her bullet's impact wouldn't endanger innocent people who might be in the same room. Her advanced training in target analysis became crucial as she studied the building layout and identified the precise impact point that would neutralize her target while minimizing risk to others. The shot placement required accuracy measured in inches rather than the foot-wide precision that was typically considered acceptable for long-range engagements.
30 minutes to target window, came the update through her earpiece. Sarah's final preparations included checking her weapon system, confirming her shooting position, and reviewing her ballistics calculations one final time. Every variable had been accounted for, every environmental factor had been measured, and her shooting solution was as precise as current technology allowed. But she understood that success would ultimately depend on her ability to execute a shot that pushed the boundaries of human capability. The mathematical precision was only part of the equation. She would need perfect trigger control, flawless shooting technique, and the mental composure to perform under pressure that exceeded anything she had experienced. Through her scope, she could see activity around the target building as security personnel took their positions. Intelligence had been accurate. The meeting was proceeding as predicted, and her target would appear in the designated window within minutes. Ghost, 10 minutes to target window. Latest environmental data shows wind patterns stabilizing. You are cleared for engagement when target appears. Sarah's breathing slowed as she entered the mental state that months of training had developed. Her awareness expanded to include every environmental factor, while simultaneously narrowing to focus on the precise shot placement that would complete her mission. The target appeared exactly as intelligence had predicted, visible through the window in a position that matched the scenario she had rehearsed repeatedly. But the actual moment of execution required adapting to conditions that no amount of training could fully simulate. Her crosshairs settled on the precise point that would ensure target elimination while protecting potential hostages. The trigger press came at the optimal moment when wind, temperature, and target position aligned with her calculations. The Barrett's report echoed across the valley as Sarah's bullet began its journey across 1,734.7 meters of challenging terrain. Flight time was 2.7 seconds, during which environmental factors continued to affect the projectile's trajectory, while Sarah maintained her scope picture to observe the impact. Through her advanced optics, she confirmed that her shot had achieved its intended effect. The terrorist leader who had threatened thousands of American lives had been eliminated with surgical precision that protected everyone else in the room. Control, this is Ghost. Mission accomplished. Target neutralized. Requesting immediate extraction. The response came with obvious relief and professional admiration. Outstanding, Ghost. Extraction is en route. That was an exceptional piece of shooting.
Sarah's extraction from the operational area occurred with the same precision and secrecy that had characterized her insertion. Within hours, she was debriefing personnel whose authority extended to the highest levels of government, describing every aspect of her mission while intelligence analysts confirmed the successful elimination of one of the world's most dangerous terrorists. Lieutenant Martinez, the defense secretary began during her formal debrief, your mission's success has prevented an attack that intelligence estimates would have killed between 3,000 and 5,000 American civilians. The precision of your shot under those conditions represents a capability that we didn't know existed in practical terms. The mission analysis revealed details that even Sarah hadn't fully appreciated during execution. Her shot had achieved accuracy within 2.3 inches of her intended point of impact, at a range of 1,734 meters, under environmental conditions that would challenge computer-assisted systems. The ballistic performance represented a level of human capability that redefined what was considered possible in precision shooting. The shot trajectory analysis shows you compensated for 17 different environmental variables while executing a precision engagement that protected 3 hostages who are within 6 feet of your target, explained the technical analyst. The mathematical complexity of that calculation, performed under operational stress, represents capabilities that we're still trying to understand. But the success of her mission had consequences that extended beyond immediate tactical results. Intelligence agencies worldwide began requesting access to her capabilities, understanding that precision shooting at her demonstrated level could address threats that conventional military operations couldn't handle effectively. Martinez, announced an admiral whose specific role remained classified, your operational success has generated requests from multiple theaters where similar capabilities could prevent loss of American lives and protect national security interests. We need to discuss your availability for additional missions. Sarah realized that her unique abilities had made her one of the most valuable military assets in the world. The precision shooting skills that had started as personal challenges during SEAL training had evolved into capabilities that could influence international security at the highest levels. Over the following months, Sarah's operational deployments took her to locations and missions that remained classified years after their completion. Each assignment pushed her capabilities further, requiring innovations in technique and equipment that advanced the entire field of long-range precision shooting. Her success rate remained perfect. Every mission accomplished, every target eliminated with surgical precision that protected civilian lives while neutralizing threats that endangered American interests. The psychological pressure of maintaining such performance standards was intense, but Sarah's mental preparation and technical expertise enabled her to execute consistently under conditions that would defeat conventional approaches. The military recognition of her achievements came in forms that couldn't be publicly acknowledged. Her actual rank and position were classified, her decorations were awarded in ceremonies that didn't officially exist, and her contributions to national security were documented in files that would remain sealed for decades. But among the small community of special operations personnel who knew about her capabilities, Sarah "Ghost" Martinez became a legend. Stories about her shooting abilities were whispered in secure facilities around the world, inspiring other operators while establishing new benchmarks for what human performance could achieve. Her training program was expanded to develop additional operators with similar capabilities, though the success rate remained extremely low. The combination of natural ability, mathematical aptitude, mental resilience, and physical precision required to operate at her level existed in very few individuals. Martinez, her original instructor, Sarah Alpha, explained during one of their regular training sessions, "You've redefined what we consider possible in this field. The capabilities you've demonstrated are being incorporated into military doctrine at levels that will influence operations for generations." The woman who had been rejected by SEAL instructors because of doubts about female capabilities had become one of the most effective military operators in American history. Her precision shooting record remained unbroken years after it was established, and her operational success rate represented standards that other elite units used as benchmarks for their own capabilities. But perhaps more importantly, Sarah's achievements had proven that exceptional ability transcended conventional limitations. Her success opened doors for other women in special operations roles, demonstrating that performance under pressure was determined by skill, dedication, and mental toughness rather than gender stereotypes. The Barrett rifle that had enabled her record-breaking Hell Week performance was displayed in a classified facility where it served as a reminder of the moment when one person's exceptional capabilities changed military understanding of what was possible in precision shooting. Sarah's legacy extended beyond her individual achievements to influence military culture, training doctrine, and operational capabilities that would protect American lives for decades to come. The woman they had initially rejected had become irreplaceable, proving that true excellence could emerge from the most unexpected sources when given the opportunity to demonstrate its potential. Her story became a classified legend within special operations communities, inspiring future generations of operators while establishing new standards for precision, dedication, and service to country that few would ever achieve.
5 years after her record-breaking Hell Week performance, Lieutenant Commander Sarah "Ghost" Martinez stood before a new class of SEAL candidates, her presence representing possibilities that previous generations had never imagined. Her actual operational history remained classified, but her influence on military training and doctrine was unmistakable. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, addressing the most diverse BUDS class in history. "You're here because someone believed you possessed the potential to achieve something extraordinary. My job is to help you discover capabilities you didn't know you had. The class included 12 women among the 147 candidates, a number that would have been unthinkable when Sarah first attempted SEAL training. Her success had opened doors and changed perspectives, proving that exceptional ability could emerge from sources that conventional wisdom had overlooked. But Sarah's influence extended far beyond inspiring future operators. The precision shooting techniques she had pioneered were being taught to snipers across all military branches, revolutionizing long-range engagement doctrine and saving lives in conflicts around the world. The shot that defined my career wasn't just about accuracy. It was about proving that human capability extends beyond what we think is possible when preparation meets opportunity under pressure. Her teaching methods incorporated lessons learned from operational experience that remained classified. Students learned advanced ballistics calculations, environmental analysis techniques, and mental preparation strategies that had been developed through missions they would never know about. The Barrett rifle that had enabled her Hell Week record was displayed in the Naval Special Warfare Museum, accompanied by a plaque that read simply, Hell Week Precision Shooting Record, 3 consecutive hits at 785, 820, and 847 meters. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez, record stands unbroken. What the public display didn't reveal was that Sarah's actual shooting achievements had far exceeded that initial record. Her operational shots at ranges approaching 1,800 meters under combat conditions represented capabilities that redefined military understanding of precision shooting possibilities. Her influence on equipment development was equally significant. The specialized rifles, ammunition, and optics systems she had tested and refined were now standard equipment for elite sniper units worldwide. Military contractors regularly consulted with her regarding innovations that could enhance precision shooting capabilities. Commander Martinez, a young female candidate, approached her after a training session. "I've heard stories about your operational record. Is it true that you've never missed a shot that mattered?" Sarah considered the question carefully, understanding its implications for the young woman's motivation and confidence. What matters isn't perfection in practice, it's performing when lives depend on it. Train until your capabilities exceed what any mission could require, then trust your preparation when the moment comes. The conversation reflected discussions Sarah had regularly with female candidates who saw her as proof that gender barriers could be overcome through exceptional performance. But she was careful to emphasize that success required dedication that transcended any demographic considerations. Her classified operational record included 17 successful missions, each involving precision shots at ranges exceeding 1,200 meters under conditions that challenged the limits of human capability. The terrorists, enemy commanders, and high-value targets she had eliminated would never threaten American lives again. But perhaps more importantly, her techniques and innovations had been passed on to hundreds of other operators who carried her influence into conflicts around the world. Every precision shot made by a sniper she had trained carried forward the legacy of excellence she had established. The mathematical precision she brought to ballistics calculations influenced computer modeling systems used by military forces globally. Software programs incorporated her empirical observations about environmental factors, creating more accurate prediction models for long-range engagements. Your generation has opportunities that mine couldn't imagine. But remember that opportunity without preparation is worthless, and capability without character is dangerous. Use your abilities to protect those who can't protect themselves. Her awards and decorations filled a classified file that few people were authorized to see.
multiple Bronze Stars, Silver Stars, and commendations from intelligence agencies whose existence wasn't publicly acknowledged, testified to contributions that had influenced national security at the highest levels. The woman who had been initially rejected by SEAL instructors had become one of the most decorated operators in military history, though her achievements would remain classified for decades to protect operational security and intelligence sources. Her precision shooting record from Hell Week stood as an inspiration to candidates who faced their own moments of proving exceptional capability under pressure. The numbers 785, 820, and 847 meters represented more than distances. They symbolized the moment when one person's excellence changed perceptions about what was possible. But Sarah understood that her real legacy wasn't measured in shooting distances or operational successes. It was reflected in the faces of students who learned that exceptional ability could emerge from unexpected sources, that preparation and dedication could overcome any barrier, and that service to country represented the highest expression of personal capability. The Barrett rifle in the museum drew visitors who studied its specifications and imagined the pressure involved in making precision shots at extreme ranges during the most demanding military training in the world. What they couldn't know was that the weapon represented just the beginning of capabilities that had evolved far beyond what any display could reveal. As Sarah looked at her current class of candidates, she saw potential that reminded her of her own journey from rejection to recognition. Some would fail, unable to meet the demands of training that pushed human capability to its limits. But others would discover abilities they never knew they possessed, carrying forward traditions of excellence that protected American lives in ways the public would never fully understand. Her story had become part of SEAL mythology, the woman who set an unbreakable record and went on to redefine what exceptional military service could achieve. But for Sarah, the real satisfaction came from knowing that every student she trained carried forward her commitment to precision, dedication, and service that transcended individual recognition. The legacy of Lieutenant Commander Sarah "Ghost" Martinez would continue through every precision shot made by operators she had trained, every life saved by techniques she had developed, and every barrier broken by those who followed her example of turning doubt into determination and rejection into record-breaking achievement. Her Barrett shot set a record that remained unbroken years later. But more importantly, it had proven that exceptional capability could emerge when opportunity met preparation under pressure, inspiring future generations of warriors who would carry forward her commitment to precision, dedication, and service in service to country. The female SEAL candidate they had rejected had become irreplaceable, leaving a legacy that would influence military operations and inspire exceptional performance for generations to come. Her record stood not just as a measure of shooting accuracy, but as proof that human potential extends far beyond conventional limitations when dedication meets opportunity under pressure. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.